Alright, I wanted to give several updates here. There's kind of an interesting picture I have in the background here, but that's kind of a spoiler for what's going to be arriving hopefully next week from eBay. So, and I will do a separate video for that one. I want to talk about the events that are happening this weekend for lots of people. So they've got, sports card shows, and, later this year will be the Sports Cards National. And for a lot of collectors, what they call Record Store Day is their national. It happens once or twice a year. There's people that have to skip out on it due to financial reasons. Some people will have to wait until the day after Record Store Day, which is tomorrow and Saturday. They have to go online to purchase their things, and hopefully the things that they're looking for were not overinflated. The stores generally are not supposed to add any extra dollars, but some do add a 5 or 10% to that. And then people, all bets are off the day after. There's flippers and other people, and sometimes people wait months later just to see if they can get what they want at the price that originally was stated. And that does happen. But again, not everybody participates in Record Store Day, and I want to give you a couple examples here. I have most of my friends that collect records, I say not most of them, but a good fraction of them are kind of like in the Goodwill purchasing mode. So if they see something for $1, they'll take a chance on it. But they don't want to go to these like kind of quote fake man-made type of corporate events. It's like, well, it's only for the companies and the Record Store Days to get rich off of us, and we don't want to mess with that. And that's unfortunately what happens, because again, if you don't see what's going on, and even if you buy nothing, it's a good way to just get an idea of what's going on. But not every record store is having Record Store Day. There's one 5 minutes from me, and they're not doing Record Store Day, and they may never do that. It's really kind of probably shoot them in the foot for doing so, because there's many people that don't want to travel to the bigger cities. I will say that some of the newer stores or some of the smaller ones don't put in large orders, and so they don't, or they put some of the top titles on their wish list, and they don't always get them. One store I went to had virtually nothing, and I was able to accidentally purchase the one that was on my list. I was like, that was crazy, that happened, and then the first two people got the Taylor Swift releases, and that was the end of it. And then everybody, that was interested in some of those releases, they were already sold out, so they turned around and walked right out the door. But I use it as an opportunity to see what other inventory, because a lot of stores are doing a combination. They have there's one near Portland that's doing, combination of a few Record Store Day releases, I believe, and then he's putting out his best inventory that he's been saving for a while. So new stuff, brand new factory sealed things, rare stuff. And so there's people that'll use that opportunity, because if they can't get Record Store Day releases, they will, start opening up their wallet and buying all kinds of stuff. And there's also things that dealers want to get rid of, and so they might, say, hey, this is all of our scratch and dent stuff. We want it gone. This is a special deal for today only. Now, is it really a special deal, or is it just kind of, we don't know. There's all kinds of tricks in marketing. I don't get in that. But again, one of the things that I wanted to mention is that I'm going to be going to a record store tomorrow. Hopefully it opens at 8 o'clock. Now, there are not a lot of record stores in my area. There's like 2. And so there could be a line a mile long. Or there could be 5 people in line, that waited over. People are already waiting in line at some record stores overnight, camping out overnight for this sort of thing. It's their national baseball card show for them. But it's, it's accessible to much more population. Some store in Arizona, I think it was, got 500 copies of one record, but see, they have a big online presence as well too. So then, but see, you can't basically put those things online until the day after Record Store Day. So again, you have to wait for those. So you can't do any online shopping. It's all physical in-store purchases that you have to make. And again, a lot of people say, well, I can't get to this, and I can't ruin my Saturday. I'll do some online shopping the day after. And I have done that several times. There were several things I was able to find very, very easily, because I know that the places I went to, in fact, I went to one store the day after Record Store Day. He had something ridiculous, like a total of 10 releases that were there for us to look at. We were like, okay. And the people that were there and I were there, we bought nothing. It would not, those were releases that were on nobody's list. Nobody had Willie Nelson on their list, not one person. So that's just kind of how that worked out for everybody. I did buy something, you know, only to be polite, and it was something, I found something I needed for my, I say needed, but wanted for my collection. It was a reissue, but still, you know, and because buying some of these original releases, people say, well, if the reissue is going to cost $40 or $25, $40, then we might as well double the original, whether it's rare or not. That's just the crazy thing about that one. So again, my take is that I have no idea what's going on. You can look at the Record Store Day list. You know, Oasis is one of those things that everybody wants. And somebody was interviewing two young people, and they said, well, Taylor Swift was kind of on their list, but not really. But they were looking for the Wicked soundtrack and Oasis. And some stores, even the bigger ones, were only being allotted one record, one box set for Oasis, because the majority of them were shipped to England or the UK. And so again, they said, don't go crazy trying to find this, you know, but US people might have to pay a whole lot for it if there's not a lot of copies, because not everybody buys these to flip, contrary to popular belief. And so I'm still looking at 2 releases from 1 to 3 years ago. It's absolutely crazy, you know, that I'm still looking at those and not buying them. If they happen to be at Record Store this time and I wouldn't find anything, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just get like a prior release. The whole point of it is to get something that's, you know, is hot in the moment. You know, days, weeks, months, weeks, days later, no one cares about Record Store Day. You could show your stuff there and people are like, I don't care, what are you doing? This was a one-day event and you had your opportunity to show it then. You know, so those people buying them online are sharing their inventory, and then a week or 2 later their stuff gets here and nobody even cares one iota. They're on to the next thing. That's just how things are these days. Once it's hot and then it's not. You know, there are still people, you know, scratching and clawing to get some sort of Taylor Swift 7-inch. If for some reason that is available and it's relatively affordable, I could theoretically get one of those. But, you know, again, the Taylor Swift releases, again, it doesn't matter how many they put out. I don't think that was listed how many that were available this year. But as many as they put out, those things really just get sucked up really quickly. I mean, I could go, the store opens at 8 o'clock in the morning. I will get there around 7:30. And there could be 50 people waiting in line because there's another store that's close, and it says they're participating in Record Store Day, but are they really? Are they really? Because the owner passed away and it's in kind of sort of limbo. And I was looking at some of the online posts and they were trying to clean up the store to see if somebody would buy the store. So I don't know if they're really participating. You know, they could have signed up previously and they're still on the list for that. But whether they ordered anything or not, I can't go to this particular store and call them up and say, do you have this and this and this? Because some of the stores are like, I can't say, or I can't do this, or we have approximately this. So it's, you know, and besides, he would be blasted, they would be blasted with phone calls all day whether I could even get in. And they said, do you have the new Taylor Swift and how many copies? Because the people online are being on YouTube are being very cagey about how many copies of and what if they got copies of certain things. You know, now there are people showing their inventory and showing everything they have, but other people are being kind of you know, questionable about that because those people probably only got a few copies and they don't want to lose customers saying if there's only 2 copies of Taylor Swift, I might as well stay home. But again, those people that don't stay home, they will feel like they're sucked into having to buy something, and so something will be purchased, and if they stay home, they won't get anything from that particular vendor, and that's why they're doing that more than likely. So anything else I have to share? Again, I should have had some records here to show you. You know, what does a person do if your list fails? Here's just one record here. Here's a Ray Charles one I can get to here. The quality of this is not great. It sounds amazing, but it's very dirty. So I gotta see how I don't have a professional cleaner. I just don't feel like spending a couple $100 right now on a cleaner right now. It just really hasn't. I haven't bought a lot of super dirty records recently, but I'll just throw some soap and water on that one. But what happens if your list crashes, you know, and you don't see anything else in the store? It's okay to just go home and buy nothing. But I kind of want to document the best I can. Again, it's a small, dinky little space there. and I don't feel like squeezing a camera in front of everybody. It's not great, and it gets in the way of your purchasing. So I might try to take a picture of the front of the store, maybe the side of the store, and maybe try to click a couple of quick pics like I'm pretending to look something up on the computer, of the aisles and rows. And this particular store also sells drums, musical equipment in the back, and that takes up quite a bit of, unfortunately that would be great records buying space, but they would have to probably have somebody else, monitor that particular section there. This store has only been here barely even 5 years. I don't want to say 3 years perhaps, maybe, that this store has been here. And again, I bought nothing at their store last year for Record Store Day. It was all gone. Now, again, if he was down to 10 releases, how does that tell you how many records that he had the other day? Probably very little. Again, everybody probably wanted the same records and they couldn't get it, so they had to buy something that was not on their list. Or secondary, or they said, oh, I might as well get this, I might as well, because there's nothing else left. And, normally I would like to have cash on hand so I could give the person cash, but I just decided I'm just going to just do card perhaps. We'll see. It just depends on how I'm feeling. It's not always nice to give them cash so they don't have to make all kinds of crazy change and stuff like that. Anyway, all I'm doing is I'm going just to see if it's just too crazy. They're supposed to have live music around 12 o'clock or maybe a little bit before that. But again, I cannot be at a record for hours and hours at a time unless the line is that crazy. Again, when you live in a capital city with now lots of young kids that are just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over vinyl records, and they weren't like that a few years ago. It just wasn't like that. It was mostly people that were you had the older crowd, but and none of my friends, they poo-poo the whole thing. But you had lots of people that were somewhere between 39 and 50 and 60. The crowd that tries to look hip and look younger with interesting glasses and some sort of a fancy shirt on or some interesting shirt, and they're somewhere between punk and rockabilly. That's how they dress. That's a lot of people. That's what the people that I saw when I was doing some shopping. So we'll see how it goes, and I may not make a video. I might do it in one of my later videos that said I went to the store, I saw it, and I bought nothing, or I didn't find any. And I'm gonna look see if this store has any of my other favorite genres of music off to the side there. Again, it's one of those small stores. Like, how many people can you really squeeze in the store? You have to think about that. They might be limiting X amount of people in the store, and they might even be limiting how long you can be in a certain section or a spot there. They might have it set up to where, because this day 2, there was only one person that could look at the Record Store Day releases. They could have looked at it for 15 minutes, and then you had to wait until they were done, and they might have bought nothing. But again, there was only 10 or 12 releases total. I was like, this is crazy. Do I even want to mess with that? And you second guess yourself. It's like, oh, should I get this? Should I get this? But I came all this way. When I say all this way, it's like 20 minutes away. It's not a big deal. And there's another place I would like to go to that opens at 11, but again, it makes it a whole day event. And I just want to just be in and out more or less, and then just make some sort of little recap saying this is what I did. But again, this is why I do not do Record Store Day videos very often. And this is just a video for those people who don't understand what Record Store Day is, or any other kind of event there. I know people still don't understand the National Baseball Card Convention, and each year it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. The perceived, rarity of all of these things makes people just, shoot out of a cannon. And other people say, well, I just want this, and this, and I can't handle it. So there'll always be naysayers. Every year there's always naysayers of what's going on here. And it's like, I can't believe you spent $30 on a record. I wouldn't spend more than $3. Again, I try to keep positive influences around me, but again, a lot of times people are like, well, I wouldn't have done that. I was like, well, that's great. You could just, pat me on the back and congratulate me for what I found or what kind of information. Again, it's all free information that I'm giving somebody else, and if they don't want to take it, well, that's too bad. Open-minded people are sometimes very hard to find these days. So I think that's pretty much the video here. They might need to be hauled out in this ambulance here if they're not, if they don't get their Taylor Swift, or they're always, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I came all the way from Poughkeepsie to get this Taylor Swift one, and they were all sold out in like 5 seconds. Oh no, and I was like 4th in line. That could very well happen. Very, very well happen. There's nothing you can do about it. Can't, but you could go and spend $500 online for the same thing. There's going to be a lot of people that are flipping stuff, and scalpers and things like that. And it's just, and the prices on eBay just shoot through a cannon, because you got people that don't have record stores, or the ones that are 5 minutes away, they don't even participate. They don't even want to order that stuff in, because there could be crickets and they'd be stuck with it all. And no one wants to have that. So that's all I have for today in this particular video. Hopefully I'll get this loaded today, because if I load it tomorrow, it would mean nothing. And thank you for watching.